The Trek Geeks Podcast Network and the Divine Treasury are proud to have Fansets as its presenting sponsor. Stay tuned for a special discount code worth 10% off your order at fansets.com. Fansets. Our pins have character.
This episode is also sponsored by Science Division, the makers of the world's first interactive Tribble. Stay tuned for a special discount code to bring a Tribble into your home today. Science Division. Trouble's never been this fun.
The divine treasury is made of pure latinum.
So this is the part of the episode where I normally imitate Bill and make fun of how they begin Trek Geeks, but I'm not doing that today because we're live from the Federation News Service. And I guess it's just because we're with Podfleet Command, but we are the Divine Treasury Podcast. My name is Mike, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Jamie, who is not fasting off of food, but has been fasting off of eBay recently.
Yeah, listen, I have to because, people probably wonder how I pay my bills when they hear about all the things that I get. So, every once in a while, I got to kind of take a break and take a step back to recoup some of my latinum so I can go on my next crazy binge of collectibles.
Well, I sold a collectible that helped me pay for more collectibles. When you pay 15 to 25 cents for a baseball card, and then you're able to sell it 10 years later for $1,400, the return on investment is pretty good. And then you just turn that into a bunch more things that go into your room. But without further ado, we shall get into the new merchandise on the market. And because we like cards so much, we'll begin with Sci-Fi Hobby, that is Rittenhouse Archives' new release coming out on August 11th, the Women of Star Trek Art and Images series. It's going to be a 72-card base set, and as the title would suggest, it is the women from Star Trek. So they've done two prior releases of the Women of Star Trek series, one back in 2010, and then the other for the 50th anniversary in 2016. So this is the first series that is going to incorporate the new Star Trek as we know it. So even though the first two series were around with the Kelvin timeline movies, they didn't include any of those characters. Now, this set will be including the women from the Kelvin movies, as well as women that have appeared in Star Trek Discovery and Star Trek Picard. From what it looks like, no lower decks at this point, but we also haven't seen anything lower decks related for trading cards just yet.
Yeah, looking at the set too, Mike, it looks kind of like a mixed bag for sure. Some of the different set designs from some of the other sets. One nice thing to note too for collectors out there who are big into Majel Barrett autographs, I believe that this set will contain the last items that she physically signed for cards, for trading cards. So that's something to keep in mind if you're a Majel Barrett fan. This is the set to get to kind of get some of those last signatures that she ever put out.
Yeah, when we talked to Steve back on the Collector's Corner, he had mentioned to us that he had some signature cards, I guess archived, if you want to say, to be able to release at different points. So it seems like he's reached the end of the Majel Barrett autograph cards. And you're absolutely right, Jamie. On the release, he does have an asterisk next to Majel Barrett, and it says that these are among the very last items that she signed before passing away in 2008.
Obviously, I don't know if I'm going to really delve too much into this set. It looks like you're going to get a lot of bang for your buck, though, getting 3 autograph cards per box.
Right.
But I've noticed with like the Women of Trek and even like the Aliens of Trek series, sometimes the value isn't really there so much, so to speak. But I'm definitely interested to see, once that checklist comes out, what type of designs are in there. Cause I know if you look on the webpage, I see that Whoopi Goldberg that's in that quotable Star Trek Next Generation card design. I'll probably be getting that for sure. And then if there's any green TNG designs, because we know that I have every single one of them up to this point. So those are going to be the things I'm going to be looking for specifically, just to make sure that I keep, those particular, sets complete. Because I know when we were talking to Steve specifically, and I said to him that I had every one of the green TNG style design cards. He said, nope, no, you do not.
He said, you have all the ones that are released.
Yeah. He goes, there's some. So I'm wondering if this set is going to contain some women in that green TNG style that have not been released yet. So really interested to see what this checklist looks like. But do I think that I'm going to go the full Picard like I just did? Probably not.
The full Picard. We now have a new term for use when it comes to collecting.
Hashtag that. The full Picard.
The full Picard. Or we could call it the Picard maneuver.
This is true.
Already taken, though.
Yeah.
So some of the signers, Jamie mentioned Majel Barrett, Whoopi Goldberg. The featured signers from this set are going to include Nichelle Nichols and Zoe Saldana, Uhura in both TOS and the Kelvin movies. Sonequa Martin Green from Discovery, Linda Park from Enterprise, Michelle Yeoh from Discovery. Ashley Judd will be featured in this for her 2 episodes of appearances in TNG. Mary Wiseman from Discovery, Tig Notaro from Discovery, and Jamie's favorite Romulan, Peyton List from Picard. So look for these coming August 11th from Rittenhouse. So on their website, they're saying that a box will be $99.99. So that is a box with 24 packs in it. Or you can just buy the already put together set for $24.99, as well as a binder with the box design on it for $24.99. So, I mean, it depends on how into this you are. I will probably end up getting the set at some point because I have the other 2. Depends on if I can find a box for the right price, only because of the fact that you can get 3 autographs in a box. That is a draw for someone who's looking for that base set as it is.
That is cool. So the next new item that's coming out, some more ships from Hero Collector Eaglemoss. So it looks like this summer they're really going to be focusing on the Kelvin timeline ships. So some of these new ships that are going to be coming out here, we got the USS Armstrong, which is from the 2009 movie. And you also have the USS Newton as well. So these are some of the new ships. Obviously, clearly that classic Kelvin timeline look to them. You also another one coming out is the USS Mayflower as well. So they're very nice looking ships, very much in that Kelvin timeline universe, that very much that style. We also see some a release of the Sona Battleship as well. That one's going to be coming out in August. I believe to the XL. It's going to be the XL style. So that'll be issue number 27. Will be that Sona Battleship. So definitely some nice new releases to see from Eaglemoss. But we'll see. I don't think I'm going to be getting some of these, but there are definitely some sharp looking ships.
An XL release of the Sona Battleship, like that thing, as I look at it right now, is going to take up major space on somebody's shelf.
Yeah, just like it's like that Klingon Bird of Prey is the same thing. That XL Klingon Bird of Prey, that thing would take up half my cabinet. So I'm actually glad that I haven't gotten that yet. and I don't think I really want to get it because it's a spot waster.
Yeah. I got to say, I do really like, and you touched on this as well. I really like the design of these Kelvin ships from the movies. Like, they do look very cool, but I agree with you. Like, unless you're collecting stuff specific to that timeline, or if you are, I have to have everything that Eaglemoss puts out for the Star Trek line. I mean, these are the Newton was a ship that was seen very briefly on screen, as well as the Armstrong. And I don't even know, was the Mayflower on screen? No, it was part of the task force. So it wasn't even seen on screen. So, we know that Jim Morehouse wouldn't be buying that because it wasn't seen on screen. It was only probably listed on a manifest somewhere during the movie. So, but I mean, overall, if I was just collecting everything from Eaglemoss, I would really, really like the look of these. As it is, I have forgotten when it comes to my Enterprise line that I don't have the Kelvin ones from Eaglemoss. So I gotta dive back in and pick up some more. The woes of being a collector.
Yeah, you start to sound like me, missing stuff.
Yeah, but I'll just wait a while. Wait until there's maybe I'll wait till November on a Black Friday deal. All right, so the final thing on our new merchandise list has to do with me and Jamie, believe it or not. You can now go to TeePublic and purchase things that have the Divine Treasury written all over them. And because we know everybody loves it so much, the heavy feature is the Spock helmet.
Yeah, those are some nice designs. We know, obviously, Carl did a nice job designing our original logo, and then Bill did some work on it as well. So we really appreciate what they did to really bring this. But you're going to be able to get all sorts of different items, tapestries, which we were talking about before we really actually started recording, mugs, onesies for your babies in case you want them to advertise for the Divine Treasury. T-shirts, baseball shirts, sweatshirts. So a lot of different things. And you can guarantee that when we go to Vegas this year, that we're going to be wearing and touting some of our Divine Treasury swag.
I only wish that there was a Divine Treasury hat on TeePublic. So TeePublic, you're probably not listening, but if you are, start making some hats, man. All right, so as part of the entry into the Divine Treasury, you got to tell the register what it is that you have that makes you worthy to be here. So, Jamie, what did you pick up this week? I'm sure you said that it's a small list, so let's find out how small is.
It's been a light couple weeks here. I did get my P2 promo card from my Picard set. I did get that in the mail. So that was something that was a free item that you could send away for through social media. So I did receive that. So now my Picard set is really kind of truly complete other than the CP10, which is the rewards card through the Rittenhouse site. I also got my release of the Blu-ray from Lower Decks. Really love this Blu-ray. And obviously we're going to probably talk about some supplemental things that we're going to be doing in connection with this Blu-ray release, but a lot of great special features on this thing. Loved Lower Decks. And can't say enough good things about it. Can't say enough good things about Mike McMahon and what he's done and the contributions he's made to the Star Trek universe. So look forward to season 2 coming out, and the second that season 2 Blu-ray disc comes out, I know I'll be getting that as well. So that was another item that I got. I also got a couple things from Eaglemoss. What's weird is I'm probably going to go on a rant here in about 2 seconds, but I did get my Section K7, which was one of the special releases that come intermittently between the regular releases. I still kind of get those, even though my regular Starships collection is that subscription's on hold. But I hadn't gotten a release from the XL line in like 7 or 8 months. And really the only one that I really want to get that I haven't gotten yet was the original episode, issue number 1, which was the XL version of the 1701, the original series Enterprise. I've been wanting that one. It bugs the heck out of me that I have pretty much the next 15 or 16 releases, but I don't have that one. So that's been really bothering me. So, but I hadn't gotten something from the subscription in about 7 or 8 months, and I finally got 1701. So I was very excited to get it, but it came in the different packaging that it was like a special edition packaging that Eaglemoss did. I believe it was the Best of Star Trek collection, where they did the Enterprise D, the Enterprise E, and that original series Enterprise in like a special type of packaging, and the magazine's smaller. So naturally, Mike, and I know you've heard me go on this rant before, it is bugging the heck out of me right now because it doesn't match any of the packaging of my other boxes. The magazine doesn't match because now it's smaller. So I am a little irritated. I have made a couple calls to the Eaglemoss customer service. So we'll see how this goes to rectify this, but it's such a bummer that the one issue that I wanted, it's just not in the form that I want. So we'll see where it goes from there. But that was the highlight and disappointment of the releases this week.
Well, I don't have any disappointment, fortunately. I'm happy about that. Do have quite a few highlights. So like you, I got my promo card and my Lower Decks. I got the Steelbook, which is pretty gorgeous. Happy to have that, and it looks really nice on the shelf with everything else. I did get a number more cards. So unlike you, Jamie, I have not completed the full Picard yet, but I'm still working on picking up stuff here and there. So I was able, over the past couple of weeks, to get the full bleed versions of the 2 Harry Treadaway cards, the Jonathan Frakes, the Jonathan Del Arco, the Marina Sirtis, the Peyton List, the Evan Evagora, and the Santiago Cabrera, all at what I considered very good prices. And I also picked up the Brent Spiner bordered card, which features him as Data. And I believe the picture is from the last episode when he's in the Picard death scene. I also was able to pick up the Issa Briones Harry Treadaway dual signature card and the Santiago Cabrera Dominic Burgess dual card as Rios and Mr. Vup. Now, this is the part that I am very happy with. So my wife and I last Saturday went to a concert at a drive-in. So while I was sitting at this concert, so the concert was on the drive-in movie screen. It was a COVID-friendly thing. Everyone was isolated to their vehicles. So while we're sitting in the bed of the truck watching this concert, I was bidding on stuff on eBay because that's just the type of person I am. And I've mentioned before that the Discovery stuff is not as high right now since the release of Picard. So I was able to pick up the Ethan Peck archive box signature card from season 2 Discovery, the Ethan Peck Mia Kirshner dual autograph card from that set, And get this, the Sonequa Martin Green Ethan Peck dual autograph card from that series. All three combined for less than the book value of the Sonequa and Ethan Peck card is worth. I was extremely thrilled with that. I mean, I was happy that I had my phone with me at that concert because I got some great buys. But that's what I do. I'm cheap. I just had a conversation with Bill about this week about how cheap I am.
Was the concert good at least? Can I ask that question?
You know what? It was cool that, it was a concert in a drive-in. So it was Bon Jovi.
Oh, nice.
Not my favorite band, but my wife loves Bon Jovi. And, I know the songs because I've been married to her for 17 years. So he recorded the concert. I think he recorded it live at a drive-in. And it was tailored very much to, the limited amount of people that were able to be there in their cars, so that it could then be shown to others throughout the drive-in circuit in the country. It's put on by Encore Concerts, and they actually have a whole series of these coming out this year. The next one is Florida Georgia Line, which we actually already purchased tickets to because, it was such a fun experience. I've been telling people it's like combining an outdoor concert with tailgating at a football game, because we pulled in, we set the chairs up in the back of the truck. We had a speaker there in the truck so that we could hear the music. We brought our own food. Like, I would have brought beer with me so initially when we bought the tickets, they said can't bring in food or drink. So I said, well, you know what? It's my vehicle. They can't tell me that I can't eat in my vehicle. But I wasn't going to risk it and bring alcohol too. And then there was a group of teachers next to us, and I saw them all doing shots. So I said, well, I could have brought like a beer or two with me. Geez. But yeah, it was very enjoyable. I mean, I love going to the drive-in as it is. And then to add music into it was a lot of fun. And tailgating.
Nice.
All right. So finally, we wanted to talk about our giveaways of the Picard set. We talked about this a few episodes ago, that we were going to be giving away some sets to our listeners. So the first giveaway had to do with guessing how many sets we were able to create. So between Jamie and I and our 3 cases, we were able to put together 65 base sets from those 3 cases. So our 2 winners at guessing on that were Patrick Escudero and Ron Robel. So congratulations to the 2 of you on winning that contest. And now we also said that we would give away 2 sets to those who went out and gave us an iTunes review. And remember, we said good, bad, or indifferent. Well, the reviews that we got were stellar, I've got to say, almost to the point where it made me blush because I'm not used to people talking that nicely about me, including family. So the 2 winners, after going in and pulling these out, now these are screen names from Apple. So you guys obviously listen to the show. So when you hear your screen name, make sure to direct message us or email us or however you got to get in contact with us. So winner number 1, screen name Casey Lee 4TS. That's Casey Lee 4TS. And winner number 2, I don't know how to pronounce it, so I am going to say P. Hims. I guess it could be Fims, but I see the word hymns in there, and there's a P before it. So PHYMNS screen name. The both of you have won a base set of the Star Trek Picard Rittenhouse Season 1 set. So Again, please get in contact with us so we can get those sets to you as soon as possible. We'd like to take a moment to talk about Fansets, the presenting sponsor of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network and the Divine Treasury.
Now, by definition, Fansets is a small business, but really, when we look at the products and the service that they offer to us as Star Trek fans and Star Trek collectors, their offerings are big. They have all sorts of offerings from all different fandoms, including Scooby-Doo, DC Comics, Batman 66, and Harry Potter.
But since Star Trek is the sweet spot of the Divine Treasury, we can talk about the over 300 licensed pins, from badges to microcrew to, what's that? Anniversary sets? Yep. Go to the Fansets website to check out all of these things that they have available. They release new pins on the 1st and the 15th of every month, and I highlighted anniversary for a reason. Available on June 1st, the Star Trek 55th anniversary pin and the Star Trek Beyond 5th anniversary pin will be available on the Fansets website. Following that, on July 1st, Star Trek IV The Voyage Home 35th anniversary and Star Trek VI The Undiscovered Country 30th anniversary pins will be available. And then on August 1st, the Star Trek Enterprise 20th anniversary and Star Trek First Contact 25th anniversary pins will be available on that date. But if you don't want to wait until August to have all of those pins in your house, on your walls, however you display them, you can get them all at once on June 1st for the low price of $59.99. So all of those aforementioned pins will be available for purchase as a set on June 1st.
And as a listener to the show, you can receive 10% off your next order from Fansets by using the code DIVINE. That's DIVINE at checkout. And remember, if you do shipping in the U.S., you get free shipping on orders $30 or more.
Fansets. Our pins have character. And we thank Fansets for being the presenting sponsor of the Divine Treasury and the Trek Geeks Podcast Network. So on each episode of the Divine Treasury, we look for a collector of all things Star Trek, and we see what's gotten them into the hobby and what they have. So our guest for today's show has a unique claim to fame, at least according to his Twitter profile. His favorite Star Trek movies are The Final Frontier and Nemesis. But you have heard him on the Trek Geeks podcast as recently as episode 255 for First Contact Day. He's the assistant editor at treknews.net. Kyle Hadyniak, welcome to the Divine Treasury.
Hey, Mike. Hey, Jamie. Thank you so much for inviting me on here. This is going to be a lot of fun.
I will say, Kyle, in recent months, my appreciation for the Final Frontier has vastly improved. I will say, I used to always write it off.
Everybody does. And I mean, yeah, I totally agree that with time, time heals all wounds and people will start to appreciate it more and more.
I think
I that for Nemesis.
Yeah. We still have a few years until Nemesis, that
no, but I was going to say, like, I really judged Final Frontier, I think, as a younger viewer when I was a lot younger, and just, as I read those, the 50-year mission books, I think it really garnered my appreciation for it when I realized the budget he was working with and some of the issues of special effects. But the story's really not that bad.
No, the story is
considered.
I was going to say the story was still weak. Well, let's put it this way. The story isn't bad as long as you subtract out the elements that Shatner wrote. Once you subtract that out, then that's a really good story.
I think we can all agree that between its predecessor, The Voyage Home, and its successor, The Undiscovered Country, it is definitely the weaker movie. But this is the hill I'll die on. I love Final Frontier. I love the story behind it. I love the themes that it talks about, especially nestled within a story of astronauts on some kind of Star Trek. They're just out in space doing stuff, and what, they go find God. That's an incredible premise, and I find it super interesting that God turns out to be some kind of fake alien that's like captive and just wants the ship to escape the planet. But so that is indeed the hill I'll die on, is Final Frontier and Nemesis.
That's awesome.
I do like Nemesis. I've actually always liked Nemesis. I mean, it does have its weak moments, but I went to see it in the theater and I walked out upset about the ending, but that was about it. I didn't think it was too bad. It definitely could have been better when you hear the stories behind it, but
well, I think I liked Nemesis more than I like it now, I think. And I credit the 50-year mission to both things, because I didn't have a lot of appreciation for the Final Frontier. It got better once I learned the backstory. And then Nemesis kind of went down for me a little bit once I learned the backstory of, Stuart Baird and some of the things he did, but
I think Nemesis is definitely worth revisiting now that we've seen what happens in Picard season 1.
Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's really good.
If you're still hating on Nemesis nowadays, to whoever's listening, just take another look at it and try to picture it in a new context. And I'm sure it'll be a fun movie.
Well, we're talking to collectors here, so I'm guessing whether they like it or not, they've got it on their shelf. So
yeah, for sure. And I may be biased against Nemesis because right now I'm looking at my model of the Enterprise E, and it's my favorite chip in Star Trek. And that's, of course, you see a lot of the good old E in Nemesis. So
yeah, you do. You see it get torn apart too.
Yeah, just absolutely wrecked. Yeah.
So since we are on a collectibles podcast, we're going to start off the conversation about your collection. So is there anything, we'll start with, outside of Star Trek that you collect?
Yeah, so I'm sure if you were to take a look at my Steam library, you would realize that I am a huge digital collector, I suppose, of video games. I'm a huge gamer. I wish I had more Star Trek stuff in my Steam library, but the number of Star Trek games, period, nowadays are very few and far in between, with the exception of Star Trek Online. But otherwise, yeah, I'm a huge gamer. I love sci-fi games. I'll be checking out the Mass Effect remaster coming out, so I'm sure a few members of your audience will be playing that as well, because that's a great sci-fi saga, just like Star Trek. And I go for really any genre of game, and my wife may say I play too much, but I think it's just the right amount.
Of course it is. So are you, when you say you're a gamer, are you like computer? I know you said you have a Steam account. Like, you like computer guide? You like console? Do you like mobile? Like, what are you into?
So right now I'm looking at my PC, my Xbox, and my PS4, but mostly on PC, because that's just, I prefer kind of the better performance, kind of bigger library, stuff like that. My friends are on PC as well. So, but I am certainly open to playing anything and everything. And that's been a quality about me for a long time, almost as long as I've loved Star Trek.
Nice. So you play Star Trek Online quite a bit, or?
There was a time for like maybe 4 or 5 years that I played it basically every day. And I can't say I play it that much anymore, but I played it both on PC and when it came to Xbox. So I'm certainly familiar with the fine work that those guys do over at Cryptic. And I certainly appreciate how Star Trek Online really delves into some of the Star Trek lore. Like, it's crazy. certainly it's made by people who love the franchise and know, everything there is to know about it. So, like I said, there are very few Star Trek games nowadays. Star Trek Online is easily the best one out there right now.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. You're talking about the people behind the scenes who know the lore. I mean, it's like they have writing staffs for these games now, like a regular show.
Yeah, for sure.
And the quality that's just put into it is incredible.
Yeah, I wish there were more, really high quality Star Trek games. And I'm hopeful that now that we're kind of in the second golden age of Star Trek, that we'll be getting something like that soon. For now, I suppose we just have to wait a little bit, and we can always fall back on the great Star Trek games of the past, like Elite Force or something like Shattered Universe, which I recently revisited for the first time in 20 years. I wrote about it.
Star Trek Armada.
Armada 2, Elite Force 2. There were some really fantastic games back in the day, but that was a while ago. Those games came out early 2000s, right? Yeah. And so I'm hopeful that somewhere, somebody's working on a really great Star Trek game.
But you know what the problem was? It was like the technology had only gotten to a certain point at the end of when Enterprise was out, and then it was like Enterprise went off the air. We kind of had this, our little recession, so to speak, of Star Trek. And it was like all of a sudden, all this great technology to make good games was coming out, and there wasn't that much interest in Star Trek anymore at that point.
Yeah, unfortunately, some bad timing there. But now I think, in 2021, we have the perfect marriage of interest in Star Trek and some fantastic video game technology that can really bring a Star Trek story to life. So I think we'll get one. I'm going to predict, and feel free to call me on this if it never happens, but I predict by next year, we will know of a big Star Trek video game project happening. 2022, we'll hear
that's
about
not
it.
A mobile game.
That's not a mobile game. No. Yeah. High quality, AAA, they call it. So PC will be on consoles too. That's my prediction.
I would take that bet.
Yeah.
So out of curiosity, Kyle, you mentioned that you've got a PS4, and I know that they had the PS4 VR that you could get Bridge Commander on. Did you get a chance to play that at all?
I have tried that on PC, on a PC VR headset.
On an Oculus? Okay.
Yeah. And that's not Bridge Commander. It's called something else. Bridge Commander was a game back in the day.
Am I thinking? I don't know what I'm thinking then.
It's called.
It was Bridge Commander.
Why can't I remember what it's called? Bridge Crew.
Bridge Crew. Okay, I was 50% there.
Yeah, close. And you were right. There is a game called Bridge Commander that's basically the spiritual predecessor to Bridge Commander. Bridge Crew. Okay, but yeah, Bridge Crew was really fun, and you really should play with friends because that's the way it's meant to be played. Okay. And you can play with up to 4 friends. And when you do that, it is totally immersive and something that you would see in a holodeck, right? And it's remarkable. I'm so glad that the technology exists nowadays to have Star Trek experiences like that. And if we get another Bridge Crew, sometime in the future, that'd be fantastic too.
Right, so you heard it here first on the Divine Treasury. We got a new project coming out in 2022. Broken from TrekNews.net.
and it also means that Jamie and I are going to have to go out and get some VR stuff so that we can play this game together.
Yeah. Buy a killer computer, buy a VR headset, buy the game. You're down $2,000 right there.
Yep, exactly.
All right. So obviously, Kyle, we're here on a Star Trek Collectibles podcast, and so why don't we talk about some of the things in your Star Trek collection? What are the things that you like to collect as far as Star Trek stuff?
Yeah, so I think the type of item I have the most of in my collection are not the Eaglemoss models, but the books that come with the models. I have a huge binder that's just full of dozens of those model books. And I find those books even more interesting than the models themselves, because as you guys surely know, those books contain in-universe information about the ships, behind the scenes information about the ships, they talk about the creative process behind bringing those ships to life, and they even do this for some of the really esoteric ships that no one's ever heard of, right? And so I really appreciate the value those books bring to fans. You can learn a lot about a variety of Star Trek ships from that.
I was going to say too, obviously everybody knows I'm doing the Enterprise D build, and I thought that the books from that build were just strictly going to be like the instructions, but they're actually doing a lot of behind the scenes stuff in those issues every time too. Stuff I'd never even known before about the Enterprise D, or, and like, even like the first issues are talking about Andy Probert and like how he, like, day by day, some of the designs that he was coming up with, and like it had basically has every single drawing that he ever did to design the Enterprise D day by day, in some of those first few issues. And then like how he obviously designed the bridge, sections on how he did the, I mean, it's really interesting stuff that I never even knew.
That's crazy detail.
Yeah. Like crazy detail. But to your point, like, I like the books more than the ships too.
Yeah.
I just wish I had time to read them all.
and with the Enterprise D, you could probably fill, hundreds of books about that ship, because not only was it used for, let me think, was it the ship we've seen most in Star Trek? Because 7 seasons and then a movie. Right. Yeah. So it has such a storied legacy, and just the creation behind TNG itself. Obviously the ship's going to be a part of that story, and so that is really cool that they dedicated so much time to really describing the mythos of that ship. Even though the E is better, but whatever.
No, listen, I love the E. I really do, but the D was what I grew up on. Obviously, has a really special place in my heart for sure.
And I think it goes along with what you were just saying, Kyle. It was on screen for 7 years, 170 some episodes, if I'm remembering correctly.
Like
a movie, and in that 7-year period, TNG actually became appointment viewing for more than just Star Trek fans. It like brought in a new fandom to the franchise. So I think that's probably why they went in that direction with something like that.
Yeah, for sure. Do you know if they're doing any other ships like that for that kind of model project?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, it took long time. It took like 3 years for this thing to even come out, because I remember I pre-ordered it back in it's like 2018 or 2019, and it finally started coming. Like I said, it finally started coming like three or 4 months ago. So I'm not aware of anything else, but I think they're going to probably wait and I mean, if it's
see what the results are.
Yeah.
I'm sure they'll have more coming out like that, because that's really cool. And I can't imagine they wouldn't do like the original Enterprise.
Yeah.
Right. Jamie just hopes that they complete the project, that he's not left with a half-built Enterprise.
Yep. Well, it could be like, if you, as long as you have like the half that maybe the saucer or the engineering hull, you can kind of pretend it was saucer separated at one point.
Yeah. It's like so weird though, because I'm getting like so many different, like I think the first thing I got was one of the warp nacelles, and then I've gotten pieces like the bridge. So it's not like it's like starting in one area. It's like kind of a mishmash of
that is interesting.
All sorts of different spots, like the neck. The last 3 kits I just got were like the neck, and then like some of the skeleton pieces. But it's really cool. It lights up, and it actually is going to be able to separate too.
Oh, so, cool! Wow.
But one cool thing, not to get too much off on a tangent, but one cool thing that I learned reading those books was that originally in the season 1, that they created a 2-foot model and then a 6-foot model. And the 6-foot model was the only one that could separate. And then what happened was in season 2, they came up with a 4-foot model, and they never used the 2-foot or the 6-foot model unless they were doing the saucer separation.
Oh, interesting.
Like in Best of Both Worlds. So those 2 models never really got used ever again. Obviously they recycled a lot of the same shots that they got in the first season. But I thought that was something I never knew, that they actually used that 4-foot model for everything else. And then obviously in Generations, when they had to do the saucer,
and they blew it up.
Yeah. But they actually used that 6-foot model in Generations because they did the saucer separation. So kind of cool that was in retirement for several years up until that point.
It's always amazing to me to read about how the folks behind the camera bring these shows to life. And the viewers would never know, like maybe an eagle-eyed viewer would be, but the viewers otherwise would never know that, this model is 2 feet long, this model is 4 feet long, and this one's 6. It all depends on the level of detail they have to show on screen. But yeah, it's always interesting stuff like that. And on the note of behind the scenes stuff, much akin to what you were just talking about, one of the best items I have for Star Trek is the Star Trek: The Artistry of Dan Curry. Have you guys read that book?
I have not read it, but I want it.
Oh, I've seen stuff on it. And
yeah. So if you like behind the scenes stuff like what we're talking about, that book is fantastic. I can't recommend it more. I reviewed it for Trek News, I'm pretty sure, and only good things to say about it. So yeah, look it up if you love behind the scenes stuff like that.
Yeah, I would say that the caliber of talent of creative forces they had on Next Generation between Dan Curry and the Okudas, and Rick Sternbach, and that show was just full of some of the most creative, artistic minds in the industry for sure.
Let's just say there's a reason why TNG spawned 2 other shows.
So true. So true. So parlaying off of Jamie's question, is there something that got you into collecting Star Trek things? Like, was there an episode or one of the movies that just kind of made you say, I need a piece of this franchise for myself?
So in addition to the model books I also have a pretty substantial Star Trek novel collection. And so I think the reason why I wanted to read up on all of this stuff is because all of this stuff was kind of presented through these hundreds of TV shows and these dozen movies. And there's just so much to explore about this franchise that we saw on screen. And there's, as much as we saw on screen, there's like double the amount of content off screen, right? There's so many books, comics, games, whatever else under the sun. Star Trek has a label on something. And so I really wanted to explore the expanded universe, to borrow a Star Wars term, in whatever way I could. And so that's why I love reading about, I love reading these novels. I love reading those books. And so to your question, is there a specific, TV episode or movie? Not really. But I think just the love of the franchise and how much content they were able to produce on screen and what authors and others were able to mirror off screen was kind of the driving force behind getting into this stuff.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I got to say, one of the things that I love about the novels is they'll take like the minutest part of some episode and they can expand out a whole novel on it. I think those are my favorite novels because it's great to have, here's a book that's devoted to something that Data did, and here's a book that's but when they expand on that one little thing that you might have picked up on in an episode, and 3 years later they've never said anything about it, and you're wondering, oh, what happened with that? That's just the coolest thing to me, that they're able to just tell a huge story based off of that little point.
And to that point, I think one of the best examples I've seen of like taking a minor character or a minor event and making it into like a book or a book series is the New Frontier series by Peter David. And so if you guys have read that, you know that there are some characters in that series that appeared maybe like once or twice in a TNG episode or elsewhere. But then in these books, their characters get totally expanded and they become really interesting, diverse, and deep characters. And so that's why I love reading these novels. It's because you get an insight into some of these minor characters that you otherwise would never, ever get. And if you've never read New Frontier, the New Frontier series, then go to Amazon, go to a bookstore, buy them right now because they are pretty fantastic and they're pretty short reads, so you can knock them out pretty quickly.
Yeah, same thing with the Starfleet Corps of Engineers series.
Yeah, yep.
They took that one character from Q Who, Sonia Gomez, and expanded her out in that, and she ends up becoming a captain at some point. And it's like, it's, and I haven't even read it. I haven't read any of those novels. I've just read that they took that character in that direction through there. I mean, it's cool. Like you said, the Robin Leffler character in New Frontiers is expanded out in a huge way.
And then also the Star Trek Titan, that book series has a few characters besides, of course, Riker and Troy, and Tuvok's in there as well. They have some cool characters as well that we have seen before, but not very much of. So, I love the novels, and there's nothing better than nice summer day sitting out on my deck and going right through a Star Trek novel.
Yeah, that's normally what I do when I'm camping. So exactly. pull something up, like you said, on Amazon and read through it during the camping trip.
Now let's take some time to talk about our friends at Science Division. They've made the world's first interactive Tribble that you can control with your smartphone.
We talk about Science Division during every episode when we're trying to pump their tires, so to speak, here. And we've had Jay and Kaylia on featuring both their collection and their business as well. Now, as you know from listening to those episodes, they've put in the time and the attention to detail that you would expect from this fantastic product, right down to the Tribble fur.
What's so interesting about this product, though, is the fact that it has its own separate individualized app, this Section K7 app. So when you download this app to your phone or whatever smart device you're using, you can name your Tribble, you can assign it to a ship. You can even put it in different modes, such as at ease, on duty, or even watchdog. And if you have that pesky co-host or that pesky collector who's trying to steal all your collectibles, you can even have your Tribble attack them at the push of a button. But we all know in the end that
Tribbles are not dangerous.
But it's more than just the Tribbles at Science Division. If you go to their website, you can get Science Division gear. So if you like to tout your favorite merchandise on your shirts, on your coffee mugs, even a tote bag, go to the Science Division website. You can get all of those things. And those totes are pretty awesome. I'm thinking that I'm going to have to pick one up for when we go to Vegas, because I'm going to need something to cart around all the merchandise that I'm sure I'll be picking up when we're there. And as an exclusive for our listeners, you can receive $5 off your very own Tribble when you use the code Cyrano at checkout. That's Cyrano, otherwise known as Bill Smith's favorite Star Trek character. Use the code Cyrano at checkout.
Science Division. Trouble's never been this fun. And we thank our friends at Science Division for sponsoring this week's show. So obviously, Kyle, I'm assuming we kind of talked about it a little bit, but is there something you really specifically focus on when you're collecting? Like if you see it somewhere in a store or on eBay, you have to have it, like a focus?
That's a great question. I like to go for the esoteric items, as any collector, I suppose, would. But if there is, if I've read about what kind of novels are out there, Star Trek novels. Not that I've read all of them, of course, but if I go see one in a store, I'm like, oh yeah, I've read about that one before. I want to read it so I know what it is. And so I've discovered quite a few really interesting novels or novel series doing it that way. And that kind of brings me back to what I said before about really just wanting to get into some of this minutia that we have seen on screen before in a very minute way, but then it's expanded elsewhere for readers just to gobble up. And that's what I love doing. That's what I love experiencing when I read these Star Trek stuff. Very cool.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. I used to do the same thing. Go to you're and I remember back in the day, the old Walden books. There was a whole wall of Star Trek novels. It's unfortunately it's not like that anymore. But you can still find some. I mean, you find the most recent things on the shelf at Barnes and Noble and whatnot. But yeah, every now and then I'll remember, oh yeah, there was this book that I knew was coming out and I didn't pre-order it, and you see it there and you pick it up. So yeah, it's good times.
A great example of what I said about just kind of finding something on a shelf in a bookstore is I up in Maine here, and I think New Hampshire and elsewhere, we have a store called Bull Moose, and they carry basically everything. But one day I just walked into Bull Moose and I found this book. It's Star Trek Voyager Homecoming. And I remember looking at this book on Amazon, and it was like, it's just like a pocketbook, but it was like $30. And it must have been pretty rare. Yeah, pretty rare or something. And then I walk into Bull Moose and I see it for like $2. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm definitely going to pick this up and see, what it's about. And it's a 2-part book series. And I have the second part that I need to get to, but yeah, so just finding cool stuff like that is always fun.
Yeah, I picked those up on the Kindle to read because it's if I'm remembering correctly, that is the story of once they've returned to Earth, correct? Yep. After the end of the series. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's the beginning of that whole post Voyager universe, as they call it. They've got the post Deep Space Nine and
see, basically any time period they've filled in with books somehow,
which is awesome.
Like Voyager is like the perfect series though to do a book series on, because I mean, and I know Voyager always gets a bad rap for like having this great episode for the first 39 minutes and then they have to wrap it up real quick. I felt like the season finale was like the same exact thing. Like all of a sudden they're at their home and like that's it, and we didn't see any other,
like literally that's it.
Literally that's it. It's pulling into Earth. Okay, so it's like the perfect series to actually expand on and go into some of these different directions.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Enterprise did a pretty good job with it too. Those writers, filling in that gap between the real last episode, Terra Prime, and
I mean, there was an episode after Terra Prime. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I know. Well, there really wasn't. It was part 2 of the Pegasus from TNG.
Yeah, the episode that really deserved another episode so many years later.
Yeah. So based off of that, so you see a lot of things that are coming up in the Star Trek universe with Trek News. You have the chance to be able to review some of that stuff ahead, but going back in time, like you were saying, the Homecoming 2-book series, stuff like that. Has there been anything where, I don't know if you're an eBay person, but you're out on eBay and you're looking through things and you see, oh, this is something that I want, but it's included with a lot of 6 other things too, and you got to buy all of that together. That happened to you?
That hasn't happened to me, but if I did run across that situation, I know what kind of situation it would be. So I would totally go for a lot of the, late 1990s, early 2000s PC Star Trek games, because you can't download those anywhere. They're not hosted on any, marketplace like Steam or anything else. And so you have to be creative if you want to play those games nowadays. But I would totally buy the CDs of those games just to play. Even like there were some games that I haven't played from back in that day. Like there was a game called Star Trek Away Team, I believe, which is one I never got around to. I haven't played the DS9 game that I am blanking on the name of. It was a PC game. DS9, you play as Cisco, Worf, and I think Kira. Someone's probably screaming at their phone right now, yelling the name at me. But that game I would love to play. And then if I had to pick up, the ones that I have played, like Armada 2, Elite Force, I would buy those too. Why not? Just to have for posterity.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, if there was an old school Star Trek video game lot, I would pick it up in a heartbeat.
See, I actually love playing. I actually have, I forget what device, what server I'm using to get all the games, but I have like all the Sega Genesis games and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I love the old DS9 and Next Generation one on Genesis. And every once in a while, I'll put those Orb of Time, I think is what it's called.
Yes, perhaps. Yes.
Orb of Time. Yeah. That was a blast. A lot of fun.
If you go to the Wikipedia page for Star Trek video games, you will be shocked at how long the list is from like pre-2000. There were so many Star Trek games on quite a variety of systems, back in the day. Clearly the heyday for, it probably coincided with how popular Star Trek was in the 90s. But there are so many. Like it's totally not the case nowadays, right? Totally not the case.
Yeah, I had the 25th anniversary game for PC. I had the TNG A Final Unity game for PC. But and you think about it now, and you're like, how did we get by on games like that? But that was what it was.
Yeah, for sure.
You compare that to Star Trek Online or even the Bridge Crew game, where you're literally a part of the game, but you were a part of the game back then. I mean, shoot, I remember how excited I was playing Shattered Universe. Just that was such a cool concept, and it's like, why don't they do something like that now?
Yes, I completely agree, and not to just totally plug something, but I wrote an article recently for Trek News where I revisited Shattered Universe, having not played it since I was a kid, and it is still an enjoyable game. It has certainly its faults, but it was such an interesting concept. You have, it's kind of like the Captain Sulu show that we never got, or maybe never asked for in the first place, but to have Captain Sulu, journey through the mirror universe and facing off against Chekhov is quite the cool concept, and we never really saw anything quite like it before or since. But yeah, that's the case with a lot of those Star Trek games back in the day. Pretty unique.
Well, maybe we'll get a Captain Worf game then now.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Michael Dorn would be up for it, I'm sure.
Of course he would.
Yeah, and he'll come out with a fake ad to promote it as well.
Ad. Yeah.
I actually remember a game when I was a kid. Man, I can't even think of what the name was. It was actually a DOS game where literally like it would come up with scenarios and you would like type in.
Oh, it was like a text-based adventure game, wasn't it?
Yeah, text-based, like kind of name your own adventure kind of type format.
That's kind of along the lines of what a Final Unity was too. You had to type in commands for the crew to do, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, you just use what you have to work with back in those days.
Obviously, I was like, I don't know, 6 or 7, so my commands were always like kill a Hora and like
fire phasers.
Yeah, put Spock in charge, put Kirk in the brig, things like that.
That's fun.
It's good stuff. So how about relationships that you might have built over the years in, your various forms of collecting? Any good stories surrounding that?
So the thing that I love most about the type of Star Trek things I collect is that I could totally enjoy them on my own in quiet solitude, right? I said before, there's nothing better than hopping onto my deck on a sunny day with a novel. Like, I don't want people around me when I do that. So certainly, reading these books and playing these games, they can be solo activities where you can really just enjoy the time alone and enjoy what you're doing. And I really appreciate that. Certainly, nothing at all against the wonderful relationships people make when they collect things and those bonds they make that you would never do otherwise if you weren't, two Star Trek fans. But I totally advocate for, the nice quiet time that Star Trek collecting offers as well.
Especially after you've done a show with Bill and Dan, right?
Yeah, I just need a break from those guys. Ugh. Bill and Dan, I'm sorry. Okay, you just talk so much, but it's okay.
All right. So now we're going to move on to our awards section of the show. So on a regular basis, we ask our guest collector to evaluate their collection and give awards for different pieces of it. So the first one we deal with is the Kivas Fajo Award for the top collectible that they would love to have, but they've never been able to get. So what might that be, Kyle?
Golly. Well, I think I know that there's a book. It's not a novel. It's like a behind the scenes book. I think it's called The Making of Star Trek, right?
Yeah.
There is a book out there that is very well regarded in Star Trek fandom as being a fascinating behind the scenes look at TOS, and I would love to read it. I don't have it, but I would love to read it. And I think it's one of those things that I'll walk into a bookstore and it'll suddenly be on the shelf, and it's going to be like $2, and it's going to be a no-brainer.
You can get it right now on thriftbooks.com for $12.99.
Okay, well, good enough.
Yeah, you're right. It's a book that everybody in the film business talks about.
Right.
Like it was a groundbreaking book for its time. And Roddenberry had a hand in it in assisting, let's see, who is it? Stephen Whitfield in writing the book. So
did you have this information like up already? Because you didn't know I was going to say that. Or do you just know everything about the book?
No. I knew the guy's name was Stephen. I couldn't remember the last name. I just pulled it up on Google while you were talking. So
yeah.
I'm quick with my fingers, apparently.
Don't worry. Don't let him fool you. He is a wealth of useless information. Don't worry.
Well, that's for sure. That is for sure.
All right. So, Kyle, now that brings us to our Grand Nagis Award. So this would be the most valuable item in your collection, probably from a financial standpoint or a monetary standpoint.
Mm-hmm. So I think, let's see, this may be either like it may be the most financially valuable item, but it's also just the one that I place the most value in. And it's what I mentioned before, The Artistry of Dan Curry, that book. I'm holding it right now, and it's just, if you want insight on any aspect of VFX, like I'm looking right now at a section that talks about the CGI in DS9, and I'm looking at the Battle from Sacrifice of Angels and how they did that. Storyboards, costume stuff, creature designs. It's just like such a treasure trove of information and such a testament to how creative the folks behind Star Trek can be in bringing this stuff to life. So I highly recommend checking out this book. I love it, and I've read it probably cover to cover. I don't know, maybe I haven't had it very long, but I probably read it like twice already. Can't say enough good things about this one.
You've sold me. I mean, I was going to buy it anyway, but now I definitely have to go out and get it.
Yeah, for sure.
And on top of that, the author can kick your butt like 6 times over. He's like a 6-degree black belt martial artist.
Is there nothing he can't do?
It's true. And you hear him talk, and he's just like this mild-mannered guy too, who just has this wealth of information in his head. And like Jamie said, he could, break in half too. Mm-hmm. So our final award. So you said that that book you think would be the most valuable, but at the same time you place it in high value too. Would you say it's the most sentimental of your collection, or is there something else in your collection that holds more sentimental value as we take in the Resican Flute Award? Yeah.
So the first one, really the only one that pops to mind, I'm looking at it right now. It's a relatively recent book by Dayton Ward, who I know was just a guest for you guys. Star Trek Next Generation Hearts and Minds, the novel. And so this is the book I read over the 2 or 3 days my wife and I were in the hospital after she gave birth to our daughter. And to have, yeah, you have it too. Cool. And so just whenever I look at the cover, whenever I flip through the pages, it brings me back to being in the main medical center in Portland after, my wife gave birth, and we were just kind of hanging out there as new parents do, and reading the book on the couch next to the bed. And I can just totally picture the hospital room, whenever I look at this book. And so that's pretty cool.
And see, that is the exact type of story that hits the nail on the head with this award.
Yeah.
The sentimentality. We had Haley Stoddard on our last episode, and hers was a picture that her daughter drew for her. I'm like, she's like, I don't know if this counts. I'm like, absolutely,
of course
it counts.
it does.
That's the wheelhouse right there. So it's pretty awesome.
Plus Hearts and Minds is a good book too. So just read the book. Yeah.
I was gonna say too that's with collecting. Like, to me, I look throughout my room, I look throughout my man cave, I see all the things that I've accumulated over the years. And yeah, there are things, but there's so many memories and, points of my life where I was at when I acquired those things, that to your point, like, that's a book that, you probably could pick up in some thrift store for $1 or $2 or something like that. But to you, what it means is so much more special. And the reason why I love doing this show is to hear stories like that of, that, like I said, something that might not be valuable from a monetary standpoint, but what it means to you is so much more.
Yep, exactly.
So Kyle, we really want to thank you so much for being here, spending time with us. And, we always enjoy hearing you on other shows and, your contributions to treknews.net. So where can people find you online?
Yeah. So my Twitter handle is at KHADY93. That's Kyle Hadyniak 1993, because I'm super creative. And you can find me there. And I'm always writing stuff for Trek News. So of course, follow Trek News on social media and visit our website. And I appreciate you guys having me on. Always fun to talk about Star Trek. And I'm glad to hear that you guys come across stories like the Sentimental Award. It's really fun and touching to hear how Star Trek has impacted people's lives in that way.
Absolutely. And, touching off on Jamie's point, I almost like hearing those stories more than, I've got this piece of whatever that's worth thousands of dollars. And I want to know about I love this book because I read it when my daughter was being born, or, when we did an episode on me, like, mine was a book that my parents bought me when I was like 7 years old that I still have, it's stuff like that. So
absolutely.
So we're also looking for collectors like Kyle who might like to be featured on the Divine Treasury.
You can find us on Twitter at divine_treasury, on Instagram with the same handle. We're both on Facebook. It can be found popping in and out of Camp Kittimer from time to time. So if you'd like to be on the show, please direct message us on one of those platforms. And also please send us your pictures and videos.
You can also subscribe to us on the Trek Geeks Podcast Network YouTube channel, where you can find video of our collections, stuff from our guests. I have been very lax in putting together our video from the unboxing of the Picard series. So looking to get that put out there soon. So take a look, see what's there. But at the very least, you'll be able to hear the audio recording of each of our podcasts. If you enjoy the Divine Treasury, you can subscribe to the podcast by searching for us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and now available for... Is it available now, Jamie, for both Apple and for Android products?
I'm not sure if it's available for Apple yet. It should
Okay.
be coming very shortly.
Okay. Well, available at least for Android products is the Trek Geeks Podcast Network app.
It is available for Apple now.
Okay. It's also available on Apple. You can listen to this podcast and all the other podcasts on the Trek Geeks Podcast Network through that app, as well as coming soon, some exclusive podcasts that will only be available on that app.
You can also support the Divine Treasury and the Trek Geeks Podcast Network by supporting us on Patreon. Get access to unedited recordings of every episode on the network, as well as other exclusive content and so many other awesome perks.
If you'd like to be a producer on the network or get access to the raw audio for the Divine Treasury, because you like to hear Jamie and I trip over our words on a regular basis, head over to patreon.com/TrekGeeks.
The Trek Geeks Podcast Network. No one talks Star Trek like we do. We'd also like to thank 5 Year Mission for allowing us to use their awesome music on the show. And collectors, we really want you to listen up. This band is writing songs for every episode of the original series. And these aren't parody music or parody songs. They are content based on the show itself. So please go to 5yearmission.net, put some CDs in your cart, because we know in collecting, it's all about the physical media. So you can display it on your shelves. It's not about the downloadable content. So please pick up year 1, year 2, year 3, and year 4, as well as The Trouble with Tribbles and Spock's Brain. Please make 5 Year Mission a part of your collection today.
We could have them on here at some point. On our next episode, we look forward to talking to a listener from the show. Can you believe it? There is people out there that listen to me and Jamie on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. We're going to be talking to Patrick Escudero, an associate producer here on the network. But until then, this has been episode 14 of The Divine Treasury. The Divine Treasury, connecting through collecting.
Music for The Divine Treasury is provided by 5 Year Mission. They're writing an original song for each episode of Star Trek. Hear more of their music at 5yearmission.net. The Divine Treasury is a production of Coconut Media Works. Executive producers Bill Smith and Dan Davidson. For more great Star Trek discussion, discover the other shows of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network at trekgeeks.com or find us in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app.